Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope y'all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talk and they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in. Here gonna show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
It's all about that BS, baby.
What's up, BSers?
Hello, folks. Welcome in. It's a new day.
Come in, grab a seat, grab your favorite drink.
New Wednesday. Hopefully we get back to Tuesdays.
That's right.
You know how thing goes, life and kids and work, and someone goes out of town, and there's golf, and there's games, and there's all this kind of crap we've been doing the last couple of days. It takes a toll on us.
It's been a fun holiday weekend for sure. Fred, Drew, James in the house tonight. Scott is off on a work venture. I think he's in Oregon. One of those pointless
He's
states.
going to see if he can get a,
I think there's like snowboarding in Oregon. I don't know what the hell is Oregon.
A lot of trees out there.
Yeah, a lot of trees. Okay, sounds about right.
Yeah. Scott probably doesn't leave this hotel room, though.
Yeah, that's true. And we got a special guest joining us tonight to talk Ravens and Jets, but I'm going to leave that for a little later. So it's a little bit of a surprise. You guys got to stay tuned for the Jets. Taking it back, man. A throwback. It's going to be a lot of fun.
The Jets.
That's right. Before we do too much, man.
I like that. It's a pretty good a good take to have with bringing in something to talk about the Jets and talk about week one. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Ravens, man, get set to kick off the 2022 season on 9/11 this Sunday, and we'll officially be going against a familiar foe named Joe.
And those Orioles, man, they're still fighting. A little bit of a tough one on the doubleheader. Come back last night with a win. Playoff life still in line. Big play who's in front of you. Just keep playing. We're
going to try to talk Terps, man, as they start off the season with a bang. And I'll tell you why I left Capital One still feeling a little unsatisfied. We'll see how the show goes. We just released a new episode of Shell and Tell, so if you really want to hear an in-depth take, make sure you check out that episode as well. And if you haven't yet, and you haven't already, literally today is the last day for it. I guess you could do it tomorrow up until kickoff, but our ESPN Fantasy Pick'em League is out there again. It's free to sign up, free to join. You're going to end up at a chance to win a Birdland BS prize pack, and more importantly, like I always say, bragging rights that you beat us, all of us, one of us, whatever it is. We want you guys to win this thing. I think we've got like almost 40 people in there now, maybe 40 to 50.
I'll be 40.
I signed up last night.
You did sign up. Last place. Glad that you joined us, James. Appreciate it. But if you haven't joined already, the link is in the description below, so make sure you do that. So before we get started, man.
Watch out for that guy. He's a ringer. James is a ringer.
That's right.
Last year. So it's that time. That sponsor read for Bauer, Hassan, and Herndon.
Your favorite thing.
My favorite thing. Remember, the team over MD Crash we've been telling you about for several years. Well, they've expanded. More lawyers and handling a much broader spectrum of cases. Now, still handling all of your auto and home and accidents and injuries at work, of course. But now, the team at Bowers, Hassan, and Herndon can help you with family law issues, with divorce and custody and child rights. Even the criminal cases like manslaughter or assault or whatever bad stuff that people shouldn't be
doing.
Bullshit
you're getting into.
You need a lawyer, call these guys. 667-220-6500 anytime for any of your needs. Save that number if you haven't. Update the MD Crash number if you haven't. 667-220-6500.
All right, fellas, it's time for some flock talk. It's time for some Ravens. As like I said,
it's that finally football is that much closer.
I know. This is like the bread and butter of the year, man. You've got college football kicked off last weekend. You've got, the Ravens and the NFL set to kick off. You've got relevant Orioles talk right now, playoff talk, man. This is like, if you're a true homer, if you're a true Baltimore sports fan, man, this is it's a good time of year for you.
Yeah, it is fall. Like it's still not fall yet, but it's that unofficial summer fall change after Labor Day weekend anyway.
Right.
You're right. This is one of those times. Like it is like when you're a sports fan, like across sports, it's like that early, like that March, with March Madness and baseball starting and like the drafts around the corner, like that kind of time frame, and then this kind of time frame.
Yeah.
When football comes back around and you still got all the college sports. Like you said,
It's exciting.
again, with the Orioles baseball being so relevant.
It's a lot going on, man. So with the Ravens, speaking of a lot going on, before we touch base with the Jets, there's some things that have happened over the last week we haven't had a chance to discuss. And one of those things was they did release their first depth chart of the year. And a couple of surprises on here. I mean, not big surprises or anything, but a couple things that I guess have got some fans talking. The first thing that I looked at when I saw this depth chart is I wanted to see the offensive line, right?
Yeah, that was the one sticking point for fans in general, mainly for the most part.
Exactly. And obviously the big sticking point is Ronnie Stanley. Is he going to be available? Is he going to be out there? Well, last week he did come back and he did start practicing. I think he's actually been suited up in pads. He was out there today.
Yeah, I think the last couple of days, everyone on the 53-man has practiced except for Travis Jones, but with the knee extension, it kind of makes sense.
Right.
But just in general, like to hear that every player is out there practicing in some capacity is a huge thumbs up.
Especially Ronnie Stanley. I mean, this is your all-pro tackle. This is your insurance policy for Lamar, right?
This
is
like the biggest question mark all
it has
2 years now.
And the thing I got to do is I got to temper my expectations with Ronnie. I don't. He's only had a couple practices.
Yeah.
I know he's a gamer, but he hasn't played football damn near in almost 2 years. I mean, he played a little bit before re-aggravating the ankle, but
yeah.
not a whole lot of football, right? So I get it. He's an all-pro. For me, I don't expect him back for this week. I think, they've been grooming Jawan James to be ready for him. Maybe not even back for the first 2 weeks of the year. I feel like with the re-injury, part of that was re-rushing him, putting him out there a little too early before he was ready. And I know the Ravens are just risk adverse when it comes to injury stuff right now.
Really,
so they're not going to put him out
in.
there in harm's way, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't expect him to start either. And that I wouldn't be surprised if it is a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I think I guess tempered expectations for me is a good way to put it, because you just don't know. Like, that player has been so unknown this last couple of years. It's like, it's hard to be excited.
Right.
You know what I mean? But we in here, we want to see the best out of Ronnie Stanley.
Absolutely.
If that doesn't, if that takes another week or two, so be it. Like, I mean, they've groomed this line so far to what their expectations were that he wouldn't be here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So now you just run with that line you got now, and hopefully you don't have any other issues, with injuries like we've had like last year, and hopefully the line can stay healthy and give you that chance to not rush Ronnie out there.
Exactly. Well, another part of this depth chart on the offensive line that jumped out to me was one that's going to make me probably $100 richer. Is that right, James? Is that what it is? $100 was the bet?
Yeah.
Tyler Linderbaum, center number one. Now, again, it's just a depth chart. I'll count my money and I'll count my dollars once we see him on the first snap of the field against the Jets. But that's exciting, man. That's, again, a kid that didn't have a whole lot of chance in the preseason. I think he had a total of 9 snaps in the last game, but he held his own in the little bit of opportunity that he did have. It's a kid that seems to be a quick study, so I'm excited to see him get out there, start building a rapport with Lamar, start building a rapport with this offense, and really just seeing this veteran line get to play together for the first time. You bring in a former Jet like Morgan Moses to play the right side of the line. Again, if Jawan James is out there, he's making the big shift over to left tackle, and he hasn't played football in a while. Kevin Zeitler, you've got the rookie now, and Tyler Linderbaum out there. Left guard was a little bit up in arms. We weren't sure what was going to happen, but that was also a big story as they ended up releasing Tyree Phillips. We haven't had a chance to talk about that.
I mean, that
was kind of a surprise to me.
It was a surprise, but then I guess in one retrospect, like, it's a surprise that it happened. But then at the same time, like, it's not a shock that they went ahead and cut him, because it was just like, you haven't really stood out. Like, he can kind of do all things, but he wasn't great at any one jack of all
thing.
trades, master of none. Like, at some point, like, whether that's their fault or his for fitting the skill level, but like, they tried to make him stick somewhere and it just didn't stick.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. That could be, if you would have just picked something, maybe it would have worked out. But in this case, they didn't, and it didn't work out.
Well, and it goes to show what the team and the organization thought about him. I know what we think about him as fans. Like I said, I never really liked him as a tackle.
Yeah.
Could he play tackle? I guess he could play in an emergency situation. I liked him more inside as a guard.
Yeah, me too.
But when you look at who they chose to keep at guard over a guy like Tyree Phillips, Ben Powers, who's a guy that really hasn't had a whole lot of opportunity, and we've been saying for years since he's been here, when's he going to get a shot? When's he going to get a shot? The couple opportunities he get, he just, I don't know, he doesn't grab it. You know what I mean? He hasn't grasped it.
Yeah.
Ben Cleveland, the draft pick from last year, had a hard time just getting to the practice field, couldn't pass the conditioning test, to get in it. So for these two guys to make the roster who are pigeonholed to guard positions, they don't have the versatility of being able to play all over the offensive line. Goes to show what really the organization thought of Tyree Phillips and his career, moving forward.
Yeah, the only other thing to mention really with the offensive side of the depth chart, not even really like it's a shock, but like the running back situation.
Yeah.
So it's J.K. obviously 1 and Mike Davis 2, but he went with Justice Hill in the 3rd spot, and then the new the signee Kenyon Drake. I don't know. That could be still trying to ramp up. But that's why I said just a slight little I
think you take this with a grain of salt. Kenyon Drake's been here for what, like a day?
Cup of coffee.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been here long enough to really have a full understanding of the offense, and everything that you hear about this offense is it takes time to understand it and to grasp it, right? So I think Kenyon Drake's going to get his fair shake. It might not be week 1, but I think overall, Justice Hill is going to be a factor. If he's on this roster, if he's on the 53, he's going to be a factor because he's there for special teams. So he's not going to be a guy that they're going to have inactive.
Yeah.
Kenyon Drake might be that guy for the first week or two as he kind of digests the system or digests the offensive system. But that all kind of really is on JK too.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
If JK's not fully healthy,
he's not active week 1, obviously all 3 of those guys are getting action on Sunday.
And expect to see Mike Davis and Justice Hill probably get the lion's share of the carries just because Mike Davis has been in the system since day 1 of this year's offseason, and Justice Hill obviously has been around the system for years. I'm hopeful JK can get out there and he's active and limit his carries. Even if he only gets like 10 touches in the first week, you got to start ramping him up. You got to start getting him game action and seeing kind of where he's at. But again, the Ravens right now are being super cautious with all their injuries and rushing guys back. So it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't play in week 1.
So then, switching to the defensive side, the first thing when we brought it up before the show was a sticking point for me. And the sticking point, but not like it's some big revelation, but if you look at the depth chart at safety, you have Kyle Hamilton as that second free safety spot. You can, that kind of safety spot can get jumbled around. Does it shock you at all that he's labeled as a second safety instead of maybe even grabbing a starting spot?
It didn't surprise me, especially being that they kept Chuck Clark around. There was always the expectation if Chuck Clark stayed, there was going to be a 3-man rotation within the safety, right? And John Harbaugh is a guy who typically makes rookies kind of earn their stripes. I don't care if you're a first-round pick or not. I mean, if they're in a desperate situation where they have to have a first-round starter, they will.
Yeah.
But they're not in that situation with the safety position. Obviously, bringing in a Marcus Williams in the offseason, that's a big deal that they brought in. Having a guy stay like Chuck Clark, who is still a very serviceable, safety in this game. The other part of Kyle Hamilton that we've talked about is his versatility, right? He could come in and not just play safety, but he can play a little all over the field.
Hybrid, yeah.
A hybrid, right. So just because he's not on the ones on the depth chart does not mean Kyle Hamilton's not going to be a major factor in week 1 and probably get the majority of the snaps on the defensive side. It's just where he lines up, who he's lining up against. I see Kyle Hamilton taking a very similar role to like a Jimmy Smith, right? Jimmy Smith was that I'm going to shut your tight end down and your big body receiver over the middle. That's who Jimmy Smith was. I think that's kind of how Kyle Hamilton will make his name early on, and then once he gets established in the league and once he gets familiar with the defense, you'll start to see him take more.
Yes, that was the only eyebrow raise for me. And even my eyebrow doesn't go all the way to my hairline on that one. It's just in general, like, the defense kind of shook out the way I would have expected it. I mean, you're thin at outside linebacker, and that shows. But they'll do some things with Calais and some of these tackles where they're moving them around to the outside. Calais even came out today, and I guess his press conference was today or yesterday. But like he came out and said like man, I expect to do the outside. I don't think there's many tight ends at all can handle me. So
exactly,
he's ready to expect to take that role, which is.
And I'll be honest with you, he
good.
even said it in his press conference today. He's like, "There's no tight end in this league can block me,"
that's right.
And he looks thin, right? He looks fit. He looks like a younger Calais Campbell, which is good because this team is desperately going to need another edge rusher. Because right now, I mean, they're depleted between Odafe and Justin Houston. That's really the only edge rush that they have. They have no depth, but that has always been Calais's kind of sticking point in the NFL, and what's gave him such a long career is, one, he's a hell of a football player, but what makes him a hell of a football player is he can line up all over the defensive line. You can put him inside, you can put him outside, you can stand him up, you can put his feet, his hand in the dirt. Whatever you want to do with Calais Campbell, you can do that. And he's a team guy, and that's what I love about him.
And I agree with like everything. Like I've said it enough. Like I really do like Calais Campbell. I just hope you can still find a way to limit those touches too. I hope so, and that ain't on a knock on him. That's more a knock on like guys like a Broderick Washington, Matabike.
Yeah.
Two guys right here that love Matabike. I hope Travis Jones getting back healthy too. But like it involves other guys stepping up so Calais doesn't have to. He could fill those roles, but not try to be like doing 80% of the work when he, at that point, halfway through the season, it's gonna show its toll one way or the other.
Well, I think goal one was getting through this preseason relatively healthy, which they have.
Just stay healthy. That's like the biggest thing.
Travis Jones was really the only additional injury that got banged up through the preseason, but again, it doesn't seem like it's gonna be anything long term. He might miss a couple of weeks to start the season, but outside of that, it's really just been working the guys who are coming back from injuries, coming back from rehab, and getting them in. Outside of that, we haven't had any, knock on wood, big injuries so far, so that's good, and that's basically what the entire goal of what the Ravens were doing through the preseason was to not have a repeat of 2021. So they're off on the right foot there, and we did get an update today, sort of, about Gus Edwards, because Gus Edwards is kind of vanished really off the face of the earth. We saw him when they first started talking about like the tandem coming back. We thought maybe Gus Edwards was going to be the one to come back first because you saw him on the cycle. Everything sounded good with his rehab process, and then poof, he was gone, like just completely disappeared. He put us an update out on social media, said, for everybody wondering about my recovery, I'm doing great and I'm very close. I've been ghost because I've been grinding. Can't wait for y'all to see all the work God, me, and my trainers have been putting in. So that's great because, again, we talked about the depletedness of the running back core as it is right now. Getting a guy like Gus Edwards back and knowing what he brings, a guy that brings 5 yards per carry to the offense,
literally,
would be huge for this team.
So with that in mind, then, is running back your top position of worry going into the year? Just at least let's not even go like extrapolate to the whole year. Let's even just think of like September, these first handful of weeks.
Yeah.
Thinking because that's where our expectations are. At least maybe Dobbins is further along after like a month or so. So is running back your biggest position of worry? Is it edge, line, whatever position?
Yeah, I was gonna say honestly, my biggest concern is gonna be the tackle position specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as much as I love to see Ronnie Stanley back, something in my gut just tells me that he's not 100% and that I don't know. I fear something else. Maybe it's a little PTSD. I don't know. But yeah, I mean,
it's the unknown. It's just the unknown. Like
exactly.
It's either we've heard so much of is it he's soft, or is the injury just never healed and will never heal? Like
it's
that's
a
what I'm
bad
saying.
injury, and you're
It's
talking
just
about
the unknown. That,
it's his plant foot, right?
Yeah.
It's the foot that he pushes off on. This is everything. This is a support system, and again, to have to go through the multiple surgeries that he went through, that's concerning. And then you bring in a guy like Jawan James, who's going to play left tackle, who hasn't played left tackle since high school, hasn't played football in a couple years now because of injury as well. You bring in another guy on the right side, and Moses Malone, who you hope for the best, but we haven't seen what he's done yet. We haven't seen what he's been capable of yet, and so there's big question marks at the tackle position. So I think that if you're asking to single one concern going into this year, that would be my biggest concern. What about you?
For me, edge, just because, like I said, even just the little thing, like just cut and dry, black and white, looking at the depth chart, there's nobody listed behind Oweh or Houston. I know, like we said, like you'll expect them to utilize Calais in different ways, or they'll try to find their ways. Like, I mean, it'll remain to be seen. Like, in the past, they found that way, but can McDonald step up as a DC in his first year and do that? You know what I mean? Like, can he spearhead finding ways to utilize that cover up that spot? I mean, it's going to be a big spot anyway, because it's like, it's almost one of the more polarizing position worries for fans as it is, because you're like, a lot of us believe in like Oweh, but then you're like, all right, but like, you got an aging guy on the other side. Like, there's no other real threat coming from that spot. And even, I mean, as much as you might like Oweh, like, there's still like that unknown where you'll take that leap to being a dozen sack type guy, a game wrecking type guy. So that's my biggest position of worry. I mean, there's other positions of worry, like, but for me, like, it's still cut dry. I'll be a broken record over it. Like, if you're not going to stay healthy, it's not going to matter.
Right.
Like, that's what happened. A lot of these teams that end up at the end of the year being where they're at, for the most part, 9 times out of 10, they're super healthy, and they stayed relatively healthy the whole year. So to me, like, that's still the big key. Like, all right, well, if you only have 2 edge rushers, both those guys can't even leave a game early.
Right.
You need them like playing at 100%.
Well, another position that I know a lot of fans are concerned about, because the Ravens didn't do a whole lot to address it in the offseason, is the wide receiver position, right? And this is one that I wanted to kind of talk to you about a little bit here. We won't go too crazy on this because we've talked about it at ends already. I'm trying to shift the focus from wide receiver specifically and focus more on receiving options, right? We know when this offense, a Greg Roman offense, a Lamar Jackson ran offense, it's predicated really over the middle to your tight ends, right? So I understand the focus is, from a fan standpoint, is, well, we lost Hollywood Brown and we did nothing to replace Hollywood Brown. But what you need to look at is the total package of receiving options, right? And for me, obviously, Mark Andrews is going to be receiving option number 1. He is his absolute security blanket.
No question there.
Right. Rashad Bateman is going to step up and be that wide receiver 1, but I think he'll be receiving option number 2. And I think his uptick in targets, receptions, yardage, this is a kid that is primed for a big year. We saw so much potential in him in the little opportunities that he got last year. And granted, he got off to a slow start because of the injury as well. But when he was given the opportunities and when Lamar looked for him, Rashad Bateman's a forcible receiver in this league. And I think Lamar will be relying heavily on him. I can't wait to see
this guy just get a shot at a full season, and come right out the gate, not slow, nothing to stop him whatsoever, no growing pains. Like, you're your second year in the league now, it's time to go. Let's go.
Exactly. So then the next question comes in: who is that third receiving option for Lamar, right? So obviously they bring in a couple of tight ends through the draft. Isaiah Likely has kind of taken Baltimore by storm and done great things so far in the preseason. He is just kind of seamlessly fit into this offense,
it's always
and really
that second tight end. There's no way to explain
100%. Every time they draft tight ends,
it's
the second one.
Boom.
Exactly. So I'm really excited about what Isaiah Likely can bring. And then obviously they did bring in a free agent in Demarcus Robinson, who had a couple of catches, couple of big catches, really nice route run for the touchdown in the preseason game. I wanted to get your take real quick. Who do you think, if you had to put money on it, who do you think will be third in receptions and yardage on this team?
Yeah, it really will be interesting to see what Likely can do, because like you said, he's going to be, if like you feel like no matter what, the way they've handled him and everything you've seen out of him so far, like he's going to be utilized in some way, shape, or form. Right. Filling that Hayden Hurst role, the go tight end that we've been kind of like waiting around for. After that, like it is such an unknown for me. Like, I don't know who to pick, because it's
the other option would be a Devin Duvernay or a James Prochet. I know Devin Duvernay, he's a burner, right? He is a guy that can be that I can stretch the field type guy. We just haven't had to use him in that role.
Yeah, we haven't had to use him in that role, so it remains to be seen if that is his role. Like, is the return game, like, if they just decided like the return game is his role, right? What to be? I mean, like I said,
depth chart wise, he's wide receiver 2.
But
what does that mean?
What does that mean? Right. Yeah, that really, what does that mean? Even then, it could still be like the 5th receiving option.
So if you were a betting man, who you putting on for to lead the team or third in the team in receptions?
Probably right now would be Likely.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to see, like, and it kind of, it's almost like the history of a running quarterback of like Lamar. Like the running back doesn't get those looks in the receiving game. But to me, like that's a part of the game like that they're just not exploiting,
right?
Like at all. It feels like most Sundays, like or whatever the game is, like. I would love to say it'd be like J.K. Dobbins, but it feels like a cop out. But like for me right now, like I would just predict likely from everything that you've seen them do with him.
I'm right with you,
and it's just going to be how it is. Because I mean, like think back to when Hollywood's here. It was Mark Andrews 8, but so did Hollywood. Now granted, like he peppered Hollywood over and over and over, but so. If Bateman takes over exactly what he got, then you're still where you are in the last couple of years where you're like, all right, well, you might come up with a play, and Willie Snead has a player here and there.
Right.
Like the other guys behind them might have a play or two in them per game, but nothing to really be like some game-breaking thing like I think maybe DeMarcus Robinson really could do.
Right.
But that'll remain to be seen if how far along he gets, any rapport that he has with Lamar. Going forward, and it really is just like you can see from his history at like Kansas City, like you might have 3 huge touchdowns a year, but other than that, like it's kind of quiet.
Yeah,
you total like 500 yards, so it almost would be easy to say that's his role. But at the same time, we just don't know if that's really going to click for this team.
That's kind of my expectation for him, too. The reason I also agree with you on Isaiah Likely ended up being the 3rd receiving option on this team is for multiple reasons. I've talked about this on the show before, is what makes Lamar successful is his ability to extend the play, the backyard football stuff, right? And then what makes a receiving option successful in that type of an offense is a receiver that can break off their route, come back to Lamar, look for open space, and find Lamar, and Lamar have him find. So that's what makes Mark Andrews successful.
So good. It's successful,
he comes back. He finds a space. He finds somewhere for Lamar to see him in his eye line and be able to get him the ball. And I saw that same type of thing in Isaiah Likely in the little bit. Now, granted, it was with Tyler Huntley and it was with some of the backup quarterbacks. Haven't seen it with Lamar yet, but I think that once Lamar builds that trust and sees that Likely's able to do those same things that Mark Andrews does, I think over time, as this season progresses, you'll see him lean more and more on Likely, and he'll get more and more involved in this offense. That's just how I see it shaking out over the year.
So, next topic, and hopefully,
this is going to be quick.
It very well could be the last time we're talking about it for the year, but because some kind of new news come up, we have to bring it up again.
Yep.
It sucks to bring up the Lamar contract situation, but the other day, Josina Anderson, who usually has her ear to the players, if
ear
she's
to the
breaking,
streets.
if she's breaking something, she got it straight from the player himself, more than likely, even or his agent.
Right.
But so she did say there was an improved deal out there. Lamar had a press conference today, said things are still ongoing. For him, the deadline's Friday,
but the week isn't over yet.
The week isn't over yet, so you still got 2 more days. Is it Friday? Is it Friday at noon? Is it Friday at 8 o'clock?
Yep.
We'll see. Even have Marlon tweeting about it. I have no doubt he'll be here his whole career. I'll be playing with him. So excited about being with my teammate for a long time. My problem with the whole thing, and I didn't say it, but I decided to catch some snippets of the press conference after you sent the photo of him. My problem with the whole
frumpy
thing
Lamar Jackson
becomes when a reporter asks you the question. I know we're all tired of hearing about it at this point. I get it. And your fault, their fault, who to blame, what to blame. Everyone is in on it. But your response to me, to a question of asking, I can't remember what the question was, but then his response was, oh, I don't know. You got to talk to the GM about that. Well, the GM has a fucking name, first off.
Yeah.
And it's warranted. We're not hearing anything.
Yeah, but
so I don't know. To me,
I understand what you're saying.
I didn't like it seemed like his little tonal shift.
It was basically Lamar saying, listen, you've asked me these same questions week in and week out, and I've given you the same answer. I'm not going to give you anything different without saying that. That's basically what his response was. I think he's just frustrated with it too, because he's told people multiple times he wants to keep it between business people. He wants to keep it between him and Eric DeCosta. And those are the only people that need to know about it. And once a deal is done or not done, we will know. And that's the end of it. That's why I'm so sick of hearing about it. The Ravens are at a crossroads. They got to make a decision as to what they're going to do. They're either going to pony up and pay this guaranteed money that he wants, whatever that number is. Not saying it's going to be fully guaranteed or whatever. They need to do that, or they run the risk of starting from scratch and trying to find another franchise quarterback, which they do not grow on trees. We were very lucky to be able to get Lamar when we did. So the Ravens are at a crossroads with that. But that's the last thing I'm going to say on it. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm ready to just fucking either move on, go into this season, and see what happens this year. That's where the focus is, I think, for Lamar, and I think that's what the focus needs to be for the fans is if you're not going to have him long term, well, then fucking enjoy this 1 year that you have left with him, or 2 years with franchise tag, whatever the fuck they do. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it with what they've got. But joining us now to talk this upcoming matchup with the Jets, like I said, we're going to take it back into time. Maybe some of you OG BSers will remember these golden pipes. That's right, Matt.
Ugh, sucks. Let's see here. Birdland BS podcast, huh? Let's give that a try.
All right, man. My former co-host,
That's good stuff.
my former co-worker, but most importantly, my buddy, Matt Talley joins the show. What's going on, Matt?
Oh, Jesus Christ. You did not tell me you were going to do that.
Of course. I got to keep
What's
it fresh,
up?
man. Gotta present the element of surprise.
Oh, my
What's
God.
going on, man?
What's up,
How you been?
boys? Good. Daddy's home.
Yeah,
I'm
it's been a
home.
while,
Feels
man.
good to be with you guys.
It's been
Yeah,
it's been a
good.
long
It's been
time.
good.
Like I said, for those that don't know Matt and I, Matt's actually the one who kind of created this entire thing. He at least created the idea of a podcast, because when he presented it to me, I didn't even know what the fuck a podcast was, to be honest with you. He said, man, you know so much about sports. You love talking sports. Why the fuck don't you just sit behind a microphone and make a podcast? I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to need you to do the legwork then. And
And I'm like, fuck, I love attention. So let's do this.
I'll lead this thing when we'll throw it to you, and you just go on a rant, and we'll make it
Exactly.
up something. We'll come up with
right.
something good. It'll be gold at some
That's
point.
how like the first few episodes went. We're like, we're going to let Fred talk about everything. I'm just going to crack one-liners these days.
Well, like I said, Matt was
man.
with us through I'd say the first year, I guess, of the show, when it was just an audio podcast in itself. During the Joe Flacco days, the prime Joe Flacco days. So I figured what a fitting day to bring Matt back to the show when the Jets are our first matchup. And guess who's starting week 1 for the Jets?
Good old Joe Cool.
Good old
Oh,
Joe Flacco.
I can show you who's starting week 1 for the Jets. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. See, it's not going to let me change my background. That's something else. I dug through the archives and I found and it's hard to find, honestly. I found a perfect still of just unibrowed, stupid smile, just. I don't know if I can say that word on here, but I think you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
The Pizza Hut commercial of Joe Flacco.
Oh, I remember it.
Pizza commercials.
They were the
Go
worst.
Go.
He was so awkward.
I completely
he's
forgot
still-
about those commercials.
He is still awkward. I mean, leading up to this, obviously, people have been talking a lot to Joe Flacco. How's it going to feel facing your former team? So he's gotten a lot of press, which is it deserved? I don't know. I don't think it is. But it's a talking point, right? And so a lot of people have been talking to him, and I'm thinking Joe Flacco's been in the league what now at this point? We're at
Since 2008. So what's that?
So
14 years. Yeah,
14 years, and the
time.
guy still can't do a damn interview. He still sounds like he's practicing hooked on phonics.
Yeah, it's pretty rough listening to him talk. He's sneaky funny though. Like he actually was
very funny dude.
He is sneaky funny. He was on an interview the other day, and they were talking to him about like back when he was with the Ravens and Terrell Suggs and his relationship with Terrell Suggs. And he
With
said,
the posters.
Yes, with the posters.
That's a good
Absolutely freaking hilarious. He's
a
like,
good story.
he's like, when I would do good, he's like, I'd come in and my locker room would be littered with these girls, like penthouse girls or whatever in his locker room, these beautiful women. He's like, but when I'd have a bad day, I'd come in and it would be nothing but guys littered in his locker. And he's like, you know what? He's like, I thought it was funny. He's like, because the camera guys would come in and want to interview and stuff. And meanwhile, I got these girls or these guys in the back of my locker and nobody ever said anything. It's just, it goes to show that, man, inside the locker room, even when Joe was here, and we always kind of thought he was ho-hum, dirt Joe, he still had a personality, and people loved him, man.
Real quick.
Go ahead, James.
The best was when Joe came in. It was at the same time and era as Michael Phelps. So I used to say, who had the better interview, Michael Phelps
man.
or Joe Flacco? Because they were both almost the same when they did their commercials.
Both of them are
talking.
struggle bus
So-
when it
Oh
comes
my
to a
God.
microphone. For sure.
Can you imagine watching a conversation between those two? I'd just rather watch paint dry. It sounds terrible.
That's primetime TV, my friend.
Oh,
You just know, like there had to have been one game at some point where like
Phelps
Ed,
came.
or one point in time, like Ed Reed walked in the same room as Michael Phelps and Joe Flacco was just like the fucking Grandpa Simpson, just like walk right back out the door.
Oh man, that's great.
Listen,
Well-
so I mean, but yeah, like we said, there's been a lot of talking points about it and everything, and I think I can kind of understand the empathy behind some people missing Joe Flacco a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Right?
right.
No, I'm kidding. I don't think that at all. I am so sick of this story because for those of the listeners that don't know, the watchers now, because I only had listeners when I was on the show,
Right.
but now you have watchers and viewers and listeners. You guys are crushing it. But
Appreciate it.
when I moved out of Baltimore about a year ago, I live in Atlanta now, and so I can only see Birdland BS, ESPN. I can only see either major stuff, and I don't follow a lot of local things. But what just absolutely drives me insane, and I think I've seen a little bit of it in the comment section here on Birdland BS
Wouldn't
tonight,
surprise me.
is just these people who just swear up and down that Joe Flacco was the greatest quarterback that ever played football. Joe Flacco was a great quarterback for Baltimore. He's the best quarterback Baltimore's ever seen. Nobody is doubting that. Nobody in any way can take that away from him. Is he a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson?
No.
No. But
No.
you go through these comments and you would think that Joe Flacco was Peyton Manning, that
Right.
Joe Flacco was Tom fucking Brady.
Right.
He wasn't. And you made a point earlier when you were talking about, some of the depth chart and some of the injury issues and everything, that Harbaugh makes his guys earn his stripes, right? He just does. And if he's putting someone in that probably isn't ready to be put in, it's probably for a pretty goddamn good reason.
Exactly.
And who did he do that for? Lamar
Yep.
Jackson, because
Exactly.
Joe had to go. He got hurt, and then he just wasn't playing well. Joe, we got to pull him out, and that's kind of the long and short of it. And do we remember Joe Flacco on the cover of Madden?
No.
Do you remember NFL MVP Joe Flacco? No, we have a Super Bowl MVP.
I
but
remember Pizza
I
Hut
think we
Joe
could-
Flacco.
I didn't even remember that until just now.
So really, man, like I just get so sick of it, because if I hear someone say that Joe Flacco is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson, or that I wish Joe would come back and sign with the Ravens,
Ugh.
I can only make two deductions from that, right? I can either assume that A, you know nothing about sports at all. You have no understanding of athleticism. You don't know about the game of football, and that's okay if you don't know those things. Or B, there is kind of like a minor storyline that a lot of people just don't talk about when it comes to Lamar, and that's that he came into the league during a very tumultuous time in, our country and social circles. We don't need to get into those things, right? But
Right.
that was right around when Kaepernick started his knee protests. It's when Black Lives Matter really started to gain a lot of traction. The Ravens were one of the first teams to end racism on the back of their helmet. And
Yep.
as well as anybody, Fred, that all of these homers, and let's just be honest, some of these crotchety old white guys didn't want anything to do with it, and they saw the team that they had loved replace a white guy with a black guy during the midst of all of that. And they maybe took away some things that they probably shouldn't have taken away from that, because let's just be honest, Lamar Jackson is a better player than Joe Flacco, hands down. And I don't think that anybody in their right mind would admit that the Ravens are worse off or would say that the Ravens are worse off for having.
No, and I think you're spot on with that. There's definitely always has been and always will be a racial undertone that follows Lamar Jackson and a lot of, I think, black NFL quarterbacks. It started with him back in his college days, like even before when he was being recruited by colleges. A lot of colleges didn't want to take a chance on him because he was the running quarterback. And then Louisville did take a chance on him. Then he went to the NFL, and all these organizations wanted to draft him as a wide receiver and do all these things with him. So there's always been a racial undertone that's followed Lamar Jackson, and it will always follow Lamar Jackson. But as far as Joe Flacco goes, listen, I'm right there with you. hands down, Lamar Jackson's a much better total quarterback than Lamar Jackson. Are there things, aspects of Joe's game that he does better than Lamar? Of course. But when you're lining up and you've got option 1 or option 2, you're going to take Lamar 10 out of 10 times. I don't care. The thing with Joe, though, is I have all the utmost respect for him because, to your point, he was the best quarterback that Baltimore had ever had at that point because the bar was so low. When you think of the history of quarterbacks that have played here, we had trash for a very long time. Outside of Vinny Testaverde for the first couple of years when they first came to Baltimore, that was it. That was the only quarterback with any kind of name. Yeah, Trent Dilfer kind of willed us to a Super Bowl, but that we all know that was the defense that did that, right? So Joe Flacco, I will always have the respect for everything that he gave to this organization. 100% respect what he did on that playoff run because that was magical. That was up there with like Joe Montana type Super Bowl runs. Like not many quarterbacks in history did what he did. So again, all the utmost respect to Flacco, but
sure, absolutely.
Flacco's going to be wearing another color, another jersey this week. I want to see him on his ass every play.
Listen, I'm right there with you. Everybody's, there's going to be a lot of chants, a lot of cheers, Joe, Joe, Joe. And I'm going to be sitting here in my apartment or maybe out at the bar or something, and I'm going to be starting the chant, fuck Joe Flacco, in my Lamar Jackson jersey.
This would be a much more interesting
and it will.
Not an interesting game. It would be almost interesting, more interesting story if it was in Baltimore. With it being up in New York, you're not going to have
New York 9/11. There's a lot of things.
You're not going to have a lot of. I mean, Ravens fans travel a decent bit, but you're not going to have that same kind of vitriol or just entertainment that the fans are going to give.
Spend 5 minutes on Twitter. You'll see it.
Yeah.
It'll be fucking spewed all over the place.
We're going to make this a game that Joe will never forget.
Yeah. Hopefully in a very negative way for him.
Most games lately end with very negativity for Joe Flacco.
Right.
But, I mean, to your point, when it comes to what Baltimore has experienced when it comes to quarterbacks, to Baltimore's credit, and yes, there is definitely some undertones and everything when it comes to these conversations. But to Baltimore fans' credit, they've never experienced this. They've never experienced their guy playing against them.
Right.
You've seen other players, you've seen wide receivers, you've seen tight ends, you've seen running back, you've seen all these other players come back and play against the Ravens in some capacity, defensive ends, and it's cool to watch them reconnect with their former team. But you've never seen the guy come back. Baltimore fans have never experienced that, and I can understand how it's difficult for them to really process that because there are people that are still walking around today, probably right now, wearing purple Joe Flacco jerseys.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I see him every week when I go to the stadium. You see him there all the time. It's just crazy to me. I mean, this was he was traded in 2019, I believe, to the Broncos.
Exactly.
And
it's been so long.
It has. It's been a while.
Yeah, this isn't like the season right after.
No.
But here we are, 2022, and this is going to be the first game that Joe Flacco faces the Ravens, which I think is pretty telling, man. This is actually, when you look at his career, he's beaten every team in the NFL -2, the Ravens and the Seahawks, the only two teams he hasn't beaten in his NFL career. So I know he's going to have a little edge too. Obviously, he wants to beat the team that traded him away, that kind of thing. There will be some, some I guess underlying motivation there. But he's 6-16 in his last 22 games as a starter since 2018.
Exactly.
So I understand, there was a lot of hype around Jets camp in training camp. They're like, oh, well, Joe Flacco's throwing the hell out of the ball, and he looks better
he
than
might steal a
Zach.
job even before the injury.
Exactly, before the injury. He might steal Zach Wilson's job as a starter. Well, I tell you what, I watched him in that last preseason game played, and he looked like the normal Joe Flacco that we've seen that went 6-16 the last 22.
We need to worry more about Zach Wilson stealing Joe Flacco's wife than Joe Flacco stealing starting position. Okay?
Mr. Steal Your Girl.
Come on. But if we're talking about theft, we need to keep an eye on him, all right?
Right, exactly. All right, so I do want to talk a little bit, obviously, more in depth about the game outside of just Joe Flacco because, when you talk the Jets, the Jets have been bottom dwellers in the NFL for a very long time. So for me, what I'm looking at with this team is just kind of the organizational changes that you're starting to see over the last couple years. I mean, it started with them bringing in former Ravens head scout Joe Douglas in 2019 to be their GM. He was with the Ravens from 2000 to 2014, so he was here for a long time as a scout. Ended up going to the Bears and the Eagles as a VP of player personnel. Last year, they bring in, what's his name? Robert Saleh? Yeah. The former defensive coordinator from the 49ers, who was lighting the world on fire out there as a defensive coordinator, right? And they needed a new face. I mean, they were 2-14 in 2020 in the last year under Adam Gase, which we all know Adam Gase should have never been a head coach in the NFL.
Eyes.
Jesus Christ, that guy.
Nutcase.
He looked like he should have been running a fucking nutcase football team. It was insane. They end up going 4-13 last year, but what you're seeing through the draft, and again, it starts at the top, bringing a GM, bringing a new head coach. Now what you're seeing through the draft, 2020, they get Mekhi Becton, who's going to be their left tackle and anchor for a while. I know he's dealing with some injury stuff right now, but he will be their left tackle. Last year, you bring in Zach Wilson, who they're hopeful to be their franchise quarterback in the future. Get another guard, Elijah Vera Tucker, wide receiver, Elijah Moore, running back, Michael Carter, right? They got a lot of weapons in 2020. And then this year, they get 3 first-round picks. Sauce Gardner was the #1 consensus cornerback in the draft. Another highly touted wide receiver, Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State. The outside linebacker that we were pounding the table for, Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State, could not believe he fell that late in the draft. Get Breece Hall, another running back, consensus #1 running back in the draft this past year. And they get a tight end, Jeremy Ruckert out of Ohio State, right? So they're doing all the things that they need to do to get the organization going in the right direction. And I don't know what your take is on the Jets, Matt, but I feel like, again, I'm 40 years old, and I really only remember a couple years of success, like less than a handful of years of success for the Jets. And I'm talking back when and
that was because that defense was so good under
Ryan,
yeah.
under Rex Ryan days, right? Yeah. Outside of that, they've been a shit show of an organization, but they seem to be taking the right steps.
Yeah, I completely agree with you when it comes to that. It is very interesting just to have watched the Jets over the course of the last, 8 months, really, just from, the course of the draft, looking back and understanding that this rebuild is something that they've been waiting on for a very long time, or not waiting on. They just haven't really pulled the trigger on doing it for a very long time. Because let's be honest for a second, when it comes to teams in New York, there is a demand for winning, right? New York fans need a team to win, and they have 2 lovable losers in MetLife Stadium every single Sunday. It doesn't matter who's playing home, team's probably going to lose.
Right.
But what's been so interesting about watching the Jets is watching them put all these pieces together. And I think really the only question that we have left when it comes to them is a matter of execution, right? It's okay. You've got the puzzle kind of pieced out. It seems like everything is put together. You flipped all the puzzle pieces. It looks like everything's together. You can kind of see the picture. Now you're going to put it together or you're not. And
exactly.
I think that's where the Jets are going to be interesting to watch this season, to be completely honest. Do I think that means that they're going to have a great season? I'm not sure. They're still the Jets, right? But and truth be told, maybe that's a pretty piss poor attitude of myself to have. We'll see. We'll see this week. Because if Joe Flacco comes out and impresses with the Jets, I'm going to be fucking furious. But I'll also be very impressed with what the Jets have done, because I have been up until this point.
Right. Well, give me your quick synopsis of the Ravens, right? Obviously, there was a lot of hype around this team. 2019, obviously Lamar Jackson wins the MVP. 2020, they take a little bit of a step back. And then 2021, there was a lot of hype going into the year. And then all of the injuries and everything that's happened. Well, again, like I said earlier, they're starting to get their health back. This is do or die year for Lamar Jackson, right? This is year 5 of his contract. What are your expectations, I guess, for this team going into the season?
I hear whispers of a Super Bowl run, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. I think when you look back at the last few seasons, yes, they've been plagued with injury, and I think Lamar has carried a lot of that weight from the general public, from the media saying, what about this? What about that? And as a quarterback, yeah, you do tend to carry and shoulder more of the burden. But I think we have placed far too much of the burden on Lamar Jackson when it comes to, I wouldn't even consider it the failures of this team. Understand that the 2 seasons that they haven't performed as well, have been inundated not just by injury itself, but through COVID-19 and just not being able to play certain players, not because they're not healthy, but just because they're not allowed to play.
Right.
So we have seen a season or two now that has, in my opinion, not been a fair litmus test for the Ravens to understand where they really truly are. And I think you said it earlier before I hopped on, was that the fact that we are going into a season with no real injuries from the preseason is really encouraging. I do tend to agree with you guys when it comes to Ronnie Stanley. I don't know that he's ready to come back, and I hope that at some point he is, but I don't buy it. But with that, they do have a very impressive offensive line, and I think that if Lamar is going to show up to play for his contract, like we all kind of expect him to do at this point, because I'll be shocked if he signs by Friday.
Right.
I think he's going to show up and he's going to play for his money. And I think he knows that he's set up for the best way to play for his money. I have the best offensive line I've had in the last few years.
Where have we seen that before? Somebody betting on themselves.
It's almost like
this guy like how used to have Pizza Hut commercials or something.
We haven't talked about him in a while.
We talked so much shit on Lamar for this, but Joe did the same thing. And then he won a Super Bowl. So let's maybe just see if Lamar can do what we all kind of know that he is capable of doing if he has the tools available to him. And I think this is a season. Granted, anything can happen with pandemic stuff, and I don't really want to lean too much into that, but anything that can happen with that. But when it comes to this team by themselves, I think they have put themselves in a position to win and win a lot and go very far this season in a very successful way.
I like it. I like everything you're spitting, and I believe it. I'm right there with you on pretty much my expectations on the year. So let's get into our primetime predictions. We're going to do this. We do this every year where we take the Ravens game and we take all the primetime games, the Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, give our picks as to who wins, give us our scores, and we just kind of tally up who gets the closest score and who gets the most wins throughout the year. So, Drew, I want you to kick us off with this Ravens-Jets game.
This is going to be my year. I feel it.
What do you expect out of this game? I mean, what are some key matchups that you're going to be focused on in this game? What do you see happening?
So my key matchup is I feel like we know that Mark Andrews is going to do his thing. I think if any linebacker they have that matched up on him, he'll do his job, he'll eat. The matchup I'm looking forward to seeing most is, all right, now it's Bateman's time in the sun.
Yeah.
You're the number one wide receiver, and you're going against, like you just said, the consensus or, the highly touted cornerback in Sauce Gardner. That's going to be my matchup to see. Do you fight through that? Maybe not necessarily have some huge game,
right,
but if it is like a 4 for 50 game, but then it took all that focus off other people, and if you're having that kind of game and Mark Andrews is eating like he's expected to, and maybe someone comes out of nowhere likely
right,
and does something amazing, but that's the matchup most that I'm looking forward to is Bateman on Gardner.
All right, what do you got to score?
My score is 28-14.
Ravens?
I just think you're better than the Jets. I know it's
first game of the Jets.
First game of the season. It's up there. It's 9/11. It's the whole brouhaha with their opening day as a whole. But when you're better than a team, you just go out there and win.
All right, so Drew's got the Ravens winning 28-14. Matt, how do you see this game shaking out, man?
Yeah, obviously I'm taking the Ravens when it comes to this. I'm going to go 24-13 when it comes to the Ravens.
All right, I like it. So for me, did you see my score? That's weird.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so I've got the Ravens winning 24-13, and I guess you're not in the outline, so there's no way you can see that. That's bizarre. That's crazy. I got the Ravens winning 24-13. I think this is going to be a sloppy game, though. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I just went through this with the Terps. Yeah, the Terps won by 3 possessions against Buffalo. They should have blown that team out even more, in my opinion. It was just I left that game feeling a little unsatisfied, and I feel like we're going to experience that as Ravens fans in this game. But thank God we're going against the Jets. Thank God we're going against Joe Flacco in this game, so we're still going to come out victors. Like I said, 24-13, but I feel like social media is going to be going crazy because it will be a sloppy game. That's my
too.
take.
I mean, they did have that just dirty habit of starting slow. last year, and hopefully that kind of thing doesn't carry over. But if it does, like, it's too early in the season and going against the Jets team. You were facing the Jets in like week 8,
right,
12 when they've already packed it in. Then yeah, but like this slow starts, I'm tired. I don't want to see that this year.
I got you, James. What do you see happening? Ravens, Jets. You're over there smiling. I can only see how this is going.
I have the score 31-27.
Yeah, who?
Go ahead.
The Jets.
The Jets.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And if it was Zach Wilson,
if
it was Zach Wilson, it would have been a different story. The Ravens all day, but Joe Flacco, Ravens, they haven't played first team offense out there. You don't know about Lamar. You don't know about the running backs. The Jets aren't that bad of players that they have. Elijah Moore looks good. The running backs look good. Solskjaer can look good out there. We haven't seen what Bateman can do for a full year. It's just scary for being the first game. And hey, just remember, the Jets beat the Bengals last year.
Oh, man.
Anything could happen. Like,
I hate that you're actually selling me on this. You know, it's 9/11. It's in New York. There's all these things, right? That like
and Joe being quarterback, because Wilson was practicing. They're like, oh, he could play and this and that. Like, it's just a scary thing. And the Jets aren't really that bad. They just had bad coaching. They draft well. Draft well.
That's what I was saying. I think organizationally they're going in the right direction.
We haven't seen our offensive line, like I said, I hope I'm wrong. I eat crow all day, but this is being the first game of the year.
Good to you, huh?
And Joe has a connection with Moore. When he came in, that was his go-to guy.
Okay.
It's just scary, dude.
All right. Well, James is the only one on the Jets. Scott, like I said, he's on a business trip. Scott's got the Ravens winning 25-15. So we're actually all pretty close on scores. You had 28-14, 24-13, 24-13. We're all really close on scores. But James, the loner, going with the Jets. I really hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too, but it's Joe Flacco.
Right.
Like,
We'll see. All right, Matt, I'm going to let you kick this one off, man. It's Thursday night football. You got the Buffalo Bills, who a lot of people, including all of us in this room, are anointing the AFC champions this year.
Yeah, everyone is. I was thinking about that. I meant to text you guys today because that was what it was. That was our theme last week. We were all picking the Bills. And then I'm like, I've seen like 3 or 4 different Twitter, like from like ESPN, NFL, notable, not just random people. And it was like, Bills. Yep. I was like, oh shit! Like everyone's really piling on. Like, yeah.
So you got the Buffalo Bills again. We all know what they did last year, and they're fully loaded offensively. They bring in a guy like Von Miller defensively, and they steal that from their opponent. They're going in to take on the defending Super Bowl champion, the Los Angeles Rams. How do you see this game shaking out?
Yeah, I actually see this as a pretty high-scoring game. I think that's a pretty fair assessment when it comes to this game. There's lots of gunslinging going around. As far as the talk about, the Bills being the team to beat, they've been beat, right? And they've been good now for a couple of years. And about, we'll call it one solid, great, wow, look at the Bills here. And then another, oh no, the Bills are getting good here.
Right.
So until they show up, I'm not handing anybody the crown. So I think that the AFC is very, very, very competitive this year, and I think that there are going to be a lot of teams coming towards playoff time where we're going to see 1 or 2 games decide the playoffs. It's not going to be just people walking into the playoffs this year, and I wouldn't grant the Bills that freedom just yet. That being said, of course, I'm going to take them. I am. I'm not an idiot. I'm in your pick'em league. I gotta win that gift basket. So if I'm going to win the gift basket, I got to pick the winners, and I'm going Bills 38-27.
38-27 Bills. Okay. I like it. So for me, I think this is going to be a hell of a game. This is going to be the game of the week, I think, in the NFL.
So.
I had a hard time with this one. It was honestly, it came down to a coin flip. And when I get to that point in a game, I usually side with the home team, and that's what I'm going to do in this. I'm going to go with the Rams winning this 31-30. The only thing that makes me a little hesitant is obviously, Matt Stafford's having some issues apparently with his elbow and whatnot. He battled through it last year and still had a hell of a year last year. So I'm not saying that it's the end all be all. But I just believe that this team they're the real deal. And I think you talk about coaching staffs, right? Sean McVay and what he's been able to do with that organization over there. I mean, they're just a very well-oiled machine, and they've got weapons all over the field. Bringing a guy like Allen Robinson, I know they're missing Odell Beckham, but bringing an Allen Robinson to replace him is super impressive to me. Do you need to step away?
No idea. There's just so many there. Hopefully, like it's vibrating.
That's all right.
Group messages and crap.
No worries. So, yeah, I think, in my opinion, I think that the Rams win this one 31-30. What do you got?
I'm not going to say much. Like I am with you. It was a tough matchup. My track record and when we do this is usually I go with that home team.
Yep.
On Thursday nights, I do have a high-scoring game, 37-30.
All right, James, what do you got?
I have the Bills 27-23. The Bills look good. You know, their defense just got a little bit better. They got Von Miller coming in there, want to, give it back to his team that, didn't want to pay him a little bit more to stay or whatever. So I like the Bills. I like the Bills win the Super Bowl. I picked them. So I think the Bills are going to win this 27-23, and you're going to see some issues with the Rams offense, I think, this year.
Okay. All right. Scott's got the Bills winning 21-18 as well. So the four of us are split. Matt is the tiebreaker. So Matt says that the Bills are going to win. So we'll see what happens on Thursday night. Sunday night football. The Tom Brady's versus the Dak Prescotts or the Jerry Jones, however you want to phrase this, right? You got the Bucks going into Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Matt, what do you see happening in this game?
I mean, come on, guys. Yeah, I see Tom Brady going in there and reminding Dak that he's not an elite quarterback.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Exactly. Listen, it's Tom Brady, right? And we can talk about all the off-field drama with him and Giselle. Are things not great? Is there trouble in paradise?
Sounds like it.
It doesn't matter. He's still the greatest quarterback of all time. And he's going to go in to Dallas and remind everyone that he's the greatest quarterback of all time. There will come a point where Tom Brady drops off. Could it be this season? Maybe. Could it be next season? Maybe. Could it be when he's 57? Probably then. But I understand the hate for him because you got to, right? But it's just so fun to watch at this point. Especially now that he's not in the AFC, it's much more pleasant to watch. Tom
I can
Brady
stomach a lot more.
So yeah, I go. The Bucks are winning this one. I will say that I'll probably make it a bit more modest of a game. I'll say Bucks win at 27-14.
All right, we're not too far off on that one. The only thing falling off Tom Brady right now is the weight and his face. Like his face is so sunken in, right? He looks sick. I don't know what's going on.
He looks like Dallas Buyers. It's literally Dallas Buyers Club.
It
looks bad. To go buy that.
It was a really weird press conference in general because he was almost like kind of confrontational too.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Listen, stress will do a lot of things. Ask Will Smith, right? So we see like fucking Tom Brady is dealing with some shit right now. But I will tell you this, Tom Brady, a pissed off Tom Brady is usually a very good football player, right? So going into Dallas, I think the Dallas is just going to take the brunt of it. I don't like Dak Prescott as a quarterback. I mean, I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback or anything like that in the league, but I think he's serviceable enough that he can get you to the playoffs and he can win you some football games. But you take away a primary target in Amari Cooper, right? And you take away what was the other guy? Cedric Wilson, right? You don't really do a whole lot to replace those guys. I know CeeDee Lamb is a very good receiver, but he's one. They had a good plethora of receivers there. I know they've got Dalton Schultz, their tight end, who's also a good option. But this is the Bucks, and I think Tampa Bay is going to be a team to reckon with again on another Super Bowl type run this year. They'll be in the thick of things come the playoffs. I got the Bucks winning this one 27-23. What you got, Drew?
Lone Wolf.
Oh, okay.
I'm going with the boys in this one. They're the home team, 24-17. I'd like to. I was looking at this game. I had a feeling I'd be the only one taking the Cowboys.
You have the wrong updated thing. Are you reading?
Yeah,
you're reading mine, bro.
Oh, did I pick? I thought I picked the Cowboys. Well, I picked the Bucks then. Then I'll just stop talking. Bucks
16-13. True Scott.
I must have been 1 and 2, and then I just saw yours and just ran with it.
I love it, James.
Spoiler alert.
James, what do you got going?
I got the Cowboys 24-17.
Tell us why.
Why?
Are they the home team?
The
What a
home
shit
team.
show.
Yep. Also, Tom Brady's got to come off that horse. His offensive line is dying. His face looks like he was probably filming The Mask, replacing Jim Carrey.
It's rough. It's rough.
It's rough, and it's got to be like one of those times where he just rides off in the sunset. Might as well start in Dallas. Like I said, he had a hell of a year last year. I just don't see him doing again what he did last year. Stress and all that stuff going on, and Bucs defense isn't that good. And I think Mark, you're gonna see a little Parsons in Tom Brady's face.
Okay. All right, we'll see, man. Scott's got the Bucs winning this one 30-19. So 4 of us on the Bucs. James, the loner, on the Cowboys.
Well, maybe.
Well, Drew, I mean, it's questionable.
Because
Who
I
the hell
used to
knows at
be,
this point?
I used to be last. Here.
Yeah,
I did used to be last. I used to be last on here because I'm the low man on the totem pole. I was the last guy that came into the show. I'm always at the end.
All right, Monday Night Football. I think this is the layup here, right? You got Russell Wilson and Let's Ride Broncos.
That's right.
Going back to Seattle, let's ride on week 1 to take on the Seahawks, led by Geno Smith. Nothing exciting going on in Seattle right now. I mean, DK Metcalf is about the only thing that you can hang your hat on there in Seattle. I know they just got Kenneth Walker, who they're hoping big things out of the running game, but I don't think this is even close. I think, Russell's got a little bit of a knife to sharpen against the Seahawks here. I think the Broncos win this in a landslide, 30-13. What do you got happening, Matt?
See, I am a little bit different when it comes to that. I mean, I understand Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson, right? And you can't discount him by any stretch of the imagination. But, I mean, we have – and maybe it's the Lamar syndrome, right? Maybe we've seen, due to injuries, due to, poor management, we've seen a Russell Wilson that's not obviously coming out and lighting up an offense like he could. So because of that, maybe I'm going into this with a little bit of hesitation. But I feel like – possibly Russell Wilson may have a little bit of a sloppy game come this week. And I think that, yes, the Broncos will win this game, but I don't see it being by a landslide. I say the Broncos win this game 14-10.
14-10. All right. Yeah. Low-scoring Monday Night Football game. James, what do you got happening in this game?
I just have the Broncos making the best of it on Monday night with Peyton Manning and Eli back, 31-12.
Yeah, I think that's the real story. Peyton Manning and Eli being back for the broadcast. That's super entertaining. I always like that.
I don't know if you got it, but I got it today. I got the nice little refrigerator magnet for primetime Amazon, what games they're going to have.
Oh, nice.
I had a nice little magnet.
Much
today.
money as I fucking spend on Amazon, I should get this magnet. I'm going to have
it might
to
be in your mailbox.
write Bezos.
It's a decent size, too. It has all their games, and you scan it, and it tells you, like, I guess how to set it up.
Did they just send it to you, or are you
Yes.
Speaking of
send
nice
it in the
to
mail.
sharpen, we'll see.
Yeah.
Mr. Bezos, I'm calling on you, my friend. All right, Drew, what do you got happening in this game?
Nothing, just Broncos 30-10. Nothing special. Just Seahawks are going to be the worst team in the league.
They're going to be really bad. They're going to be really bad.
Yeah,
The
it's just gonna be
Broncos,
bad.
they've got weapons all over the field at
Number
wide
one
receiver. I mean, they're a very good team. They got a very good defense. And again, this is a little bit of a grudge match, I think, for Russell Wilson. Not that the Seahawks gave up on him, but the Seahawks gave up on him.
He also got what he wanted.
No, I get that. He got what he wanted, so I don't think he's like pissed off at the world. Obviously, he's moved on and he's doing big things down there, and he just signed an extension to stay in Denver. But again, this, ultimate competitors, when a team gives up on you per se or whatever, you have a little bit of extra in you to go after
I wonder
them.
if he's going to wear his Seahawk jersey into the stadium.
I don't know. We'll see.
likes wearing
a
them.
throwback jersey? That would be
likes wearing
hilarious. Matt, hey man, can't thank
thanks
you
for coming
enough for
on.
taking the time to join us today, man. It was fun catching up with you as always. It's been a while since you've been on the show. We'll have to make this more regular. So we'll have to bring you in maybe on the quarter to talk things Ravens and talk some predictions, man. It was fun.
Hey, man, I would absolutely be down for that. I appreciate you letting me sit in the corner here and look like a douchebag Adam Schefter. It's been good to hang out with you guys. Enjoy this season, and I'm sure that we'll be catching up soon.
All right, Matt. Talk to you soon, bud.
Thanks.
All right, be
See you,
good.
dude. That was fat. That was fun, man. Matt
Yeah.
Talley hadn't been on the show in a long
He
time.
didn't skip a beat. He was real good.
Absolutely. All right. James, time for a social media shout out. Who's been in the chat room? Who's been chatting it up? I didn't even have a chance to really look through the chat. What's going on?
It was a little quiet today, I guess, because it's Wednesday or people are getting back in the routine of things. But
I figured it'd be a little
a
off.
couple people just snuck in right now before we went off and talk about who's here. So, again, we have Chuck Summers coming in as number one. Maybe that's why.
Hey, what's up, Chuck?
Maybe that's why the Bills are going to be in Super Bowl, because he's always coming in.
Chuck's pumped for the year.
But we had Bora, Kamal, Steve, Stephanie, Dave, Joshua, Nick Short, Jacob Paul, Amit, John Googs, Brian just came in, Kohler, and we had a Thomas Morgan that just snuck in just in time.
Awesome.
So we appreciate you guys tuning in, as always. Sorry about Wednesday night. Things came up. We had to make some adjustments, so we appreciate having you guys in.
Yeah, no worries. I saw you had pinned some messages there. Any
Yes.
good comments that you wanted to bring in?
I just wanted to let me get the mouse over here. Hold on. Technical difficulties. I just put some scores in here. Chuck said Ravens 25-12.
Defense gets 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I got Chuck has the Bills 36-32. John Googs had 31-26 for the Rams. Kamal had the Bills 24-27, and Googs likes his Bucks 29-21. Just put it in there, and Googs just updated. I was going to update. The Orioles are down 4-1.
That is not the update I wanted to hear.
Maybe that's all the messages that were going on someone's end over there, Mr. Drew.
Yeah, I heard the phone going. I didn't know if it was family or what the hell was going on.
Messages. You got so many people that never shut up and they just keep talking.
I got a
It's
few
like,
groups that are like that. One that is in this room. Anyway, let's talk some bros, bows, and O's, man. Is the team right now sits at 72-64, 3.5 games back of the playoffs, 26 games remaining. I mean, they won 6 straight series for the first time since 2014, which is super impressive. This all coming obviously before the important series versus the Blue Jays that didn't start well on Monday's doubleheader. Bit of a shitburger, if you ask me, losing both. But now a chance to save and split the series after a huge 9-6 win last night. Obviously, like you said, they're trailing right now 4-1. They were trailing last night 3-0 as well before they made a comeback. So I'm not giving up on everything, but before we get into last night in the Blue Jays series, because last night was epic, let's talk about how we got there a little bit. Let's talk about a big debut that we had been looking for and waiting for quite some time in Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah, good old Gunnar Henderson showed up, I mean, right out the gate.
Yeah.
Allowed out in his first at-bat, a home run in the second at-bat on the second pitch of that
Blind
at-bat.
home run.
Barely seeing it as it was. Up in Cleveland, right out the gate, he was showing the arm and the glove right away.
Yeah.
Just right out the gate, at least that's the first thing that stood out. I mean, he's still doing stuff at the plate. No big homers yet since that first one, but he's had doubles. You know, he's gotten hits. But like every position, I mean, in the doubleheader, he had the issues at second, but at every position, he stepped right up and looked like it's old hat to him.
Yeah, and I think that was been the biggest thing that stood out to me. His bat isn't a surprise to me. His bat I kind of expected. I just didn't know how he would hold his own once you started seeing him basically game to game. For the first 4 games, I think, of his career, he didn't play the same position. I mean, he moved third, second, short. He was all over the infield. But, you know, he had a couple of blunders. Most of that was happening at second base, and it was like it all happened in one game. Kind of, I don't know if it got in his head a little bit.
He also had like I think it was against the A's. He was really cool where he turned the double play, and it was like we talked about, like just like complete arm strength.
Yeah.
It was like not a lot of players would be able to make that throw, and he did like on a dart.
And
like,
that's
making the turn. Just
that's
watch his
been
power
one
of
of
his
the
arm.
more impressive things. Like, you know, you think back to like when Manny Machado and Scope were manning the middle of the infield, right? The 2 arms that those guys had, right? And Machado or Scope didn't have the quickest of turns on a double play, but he made up for that
so
in
strong,
arm
yeah.
strength. You see that at Gunnar when he plays second base, because I know a lot of the hesitation with putting him at second base was rooting it outdoor. He's he's so fluid in his changes for the double plays, and this team was very efficient with double plays. But Gunnar Henderson showed that he can hold up his end of the bargain. And again, having his bat, I think, in this lineup is crucial to this team's playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, they end up taking 2 of 3 from Cleveland. Before that, taking 2 of 3 from Houston. Like, that's tough. Like, that's nothing to shake your hat at. That's what I'm saying. Like, you had a little hiccup. Like, you got to remember, like, they were able to win series against 2 division leaders. So, like I said, took 2 of 3 against Cleveland, but they did it with pitching. It was shutouts.
Yeah.
Like, back-to-back shutouts for, like, the first time in years for them.
You had Lyles and Bradish
Yeah,
both.
Lyles and Bradish. Bradish has been looking really good. I think
Till last night.
Last night was a really hiccup, but like I almost feel like this. It's like that's just like the story of the series. Like it's such an anomaly of things. But prior to last night, he really looked like the Bradish that I thought like you had seen against St. Louis earlier in the year.
Yep.
But he had 2 straight shutouts himself, only giving up 2 hits. Maybe the walks or maybe were a little bit of his issue, but in his last 5 starts, including that, it was a 2.64 ERA across 30 innings. Hopefully it's turned that corner. Hopefully, like I said, last night, whatever happened last night was, the rain delay, not to make excuses, but it was a lot of craziness to go to it too.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like maybe he just didn't have it. Sometimes it just happens. Like he could have not had it, spiraled out, and he gave up 7 runs. You know what I mean?
What I see out of Bradish is I see what you expect out of a young pitcher is confidence, right? If he gets going and he finds his mark early on in the first inning, he can usually ride that out, and we've seen that over those couple games that he went and he pitched shutouts, right? He got real deep into the game, and it started early. This game against the Blue Jays, he kind of started a little rough out of the gate, and it just it didn't end. It didn't end well. So obviously Hyde pulled him a little early because it was a must-win game, a game situation where they needed to have it. But I like Kyle Bradish and what he does. Again, there's no question about his stuff. It's always just been, for me, it's always just been command and it's been confidence. If he can get rolling with the confidence and he can get his command on, he can be a middle of the rotation guy, no questions asked.
Yeah, now granted, I know like I'm a huge fan and I'm more invested in him than maybe some other people, but it was like I see the 2 starts that were so great against, like I said, division leaders, and it just shows that like at least he's getting something. Like you got to remember, it's still like a very small like sample of starts that like. Let's see where he's at next year. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times when you got players like you're like, all right, well that guy looks a little bit talented. Let's see what he does. And it's like it seemed like every game that guy's giving up 5 runs or something. Like if you're having those ups and downs, like I could take those ups and downs if you have those ups. Like,
right.
I'd rather see the ups and the downs than like just straight like nothing.
Right.
And that's what it had happened right before the injury too. So maybe the injury. It's in the rear view now. It gave them a little bit of a break, even maybe, and like hopefully like I said, hopefully last night was a hiccup and he moves back to it.
Yep. And then you talked about the Guardians series. Well, then you also had the A's come into Camden over the weekend, end up taking 2 of 3 from them. And that was kind of a shift, man. You saw the offense kind of get going in that series. Ended up having 5 home runs for the 5th time this year over the weekend on Saturday. That's kind of what I've been saying about this team all year is it's you haven't seen them be able to put it together like collectively where everything's kind of clicking at one time, which I think if that happens, this team can be extremely dangerous. But they've always had something that's been able to carry them through. It's either the starting pitching carries them through and they only need 2 or 3 runs to win it, or the offense can do this and hit 5 home runs in a game where the pitching isn't great, but the offensive onslaught carries them through to a win. And that's what you saw in this series.
Yeah, I said it to you the other day, it's like, it's crazy to think that like you're not looking at this team going, oh, they're good, but the pitching is just so atrocious.
Right.
It's like the offense is that Jekyll and Hyde. Like, you look so good, and then like sometimes you face these guys that like have like a 6.5 ERA and like their 10th start and ever, and it's like, how did you just get like damn near shut out against that guy?
Right.
It's just it seems to always happen. I mean, it is what it is. That's the game of baseball. You could have a 2-week stretch where your offense doesn't do anything at all, and you're still winning games.
Right.
Or your offense can score 9, but you're giving up 10. Like, that just kind of happens that way sometimes. But after that series, or after at least, I don't know if it was on Saturday, they did get to 10 games over 500 for the first time since May of 2017.
That's impressive.
We know how
man.
2017 took that, nosedive in September and led to the rebuild. So
Right. And this, again, is a
thing
team,
to point out.
talking about an Oriole team that's lost 100 games 3 years consecutively, right? And they're already over the 70 win mark. That's super impressive, right? It's just crazy to think of where they're at. They still got 25 games left to go. I mean, they're not going to go 25-0, so they're not going to win, almost 100 games. But at the end of the day, it's crazy and it's fun to be talking about potential playoff baseball.
Yeah, it's just insane to think, unless they completely tank, which I don't think, they're going to fall off all of a sudden, just hit a cliff and jump. They're going to have a winning record.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I just remember myself thinking in 2012, and it went much higher than having a winning record. He had 90-some wins, but it was just get to 82. Just give me 82. I'm happy with 82. It'll suck if they didn't make the playoffs, but they're on house money to me at this point. Like I said, it's just a breath of fresh air.
Absolutely.
To be able to be all right, now we're done talking about the Orioles. Right. We might be bringing up the minors. We would be talking about
That's why I said,
Hunter,
man.
Gunner and Cowser and the other guys. But now we're talking about the main roster.
If you're a Birdland fan, man, it's exciting times. The Ravens are kicking off. The Orioles are relevant in a playoff run. It's exciting times right now. And, this series that started on Monday against the Blue Jays was an exciting series. I think that the fans knew the relevance to it, right? This was a chance when you're sitting 2.5 games at the time out of the playoffs going into this series, sitting right behind the Blue Jays. You got a chance to not only catch up, but overtake that spot and get into the wild card place. And you got a doubleheader to kick it off, and they lay an absolute shitburger in the doubleheader.
Yeah,
what
especially
happened?
The first game, it was like I just said about the offense. They had opportunities early on to at least add some runs and give that little bit of cushion.
Right.
And it was like they just weren't. And then it was just like things would go wrong. And you can't not. It's time for robot umps.
Oh,
for crying out loud. That guy in the
that
first
strike
game,
zone
it's
was
not
so bad.
That wasn't the only thing. You can't just blame that, but it was the strikeout to Mountcastle was Mountcastle struggles at
6
striking out
inches
as it
below
is.
the zone.
It's damn near in the
dirt.
shoe.
Right.
I just
Yeah.
so bad. It was but that was the first game, and it just seemed like some bad thing turned over to the second game, and I think I made it through the fourth inning of that game. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna. It was a long weekend. Time to start getting ready for bed.
Yeah, it just sucks, man. Anyway, you're sitting at 2.5 with a chance to kind of control your own destiny type of thing, and get into the playoffs, or at least get into the last possession of the wild card spot at the time.
Yeah, it's just insane. I said it before. It's just insane to think you said it. They had won 6 straight series until the Toronto series, and they gained no ground because Toronto's been there. Tampa and Seattle are seem like they're just getting better by the day.
Yeah,
it's just crazy to think it could be even, like I said, you could be even better. It's just the teams around you had that much of a leg up.
And I tell you what, Bo Bichette has become our next
happens
nemesis.
Every year. It's there's one guy. It was Grichuk.
Yep.
It's been Betts. It's been
was Bautista
Torres,
for a while.
Bautista at one point, even when
Now it's
crazy,
Bichette. I mean, this guy before tonight ended up going 10 for 15 through the series in the first 3 games with 4 home runs, 9 RBI. Absolute killer of a series so far. But with that said, it would have been very easy for this team to just kind of fold away and kind of wither away. But it's kind of what makes this team special, man, is that they don't just fall into whatever, fans expect, or they don't fall in after a bad performance, man. They have fight, they have grit, and they came back in a game that they were down 3-0 after losing the doubleheader. They come back and put a 5 spot on in the 3rd inning to take the lead in that game, hold on to end up winning that game. I think the final score was 9-6.
Yeah,
it was a hell of a game.
They ended up blowing it up in the 8th, adding some insurance runs, which was really good. That was a really good inning, highlighted by Adley taking yet another walk. Santander doing his thing, not getting away with, but he had the catcher rule came into play that helped him out too, and some clutch hits, that's what I say. That's the aggravating thing is you can have a 2 or 3 game stretch where it's runners in scoring position is crap. And then you have a game where they win 9-1. And then you have a game where they, add 3 runs in the 8th. And it's like, do that all the time.
Right.
And that would be so much more appealing, but it is what it is.
Right. Well, I think one of the more telling things about this game was you saw Brandon Hyde go into playoff manager mode. And we haven't seen that from Brandon Hyde yet, right? So they got down early, like I said, 3-0. It gets to the bullpen early. I thought that was a hell of a job. He goes through Tate, Perez, Baker, and Bautista in this game. But again, he brings them in the 3rd inning. That's not something that we've seen with Hyde so far.
It literally happens in playoff games.
It was a must-win game.
Like the baseball, that's a strategy with baseball now, and like that's what happens in playoff games. Yeah.
Right. So it was good to see that out of Hyde as the manager. There was a lot of things that happened in this game. The slide by Odor at second base and how he was able to contort his body and avoid the tag was unreal.
I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Oh, all right, cool.
Even on the broadcast,
he was on second.
Yep.
And then it just happened like they scored a few runs.
Even Kevin Brown was like, "Oh, and he's out by 30 feet." No, wait, he's not. What?
Well,
Unreal.
Well, that's what shows you that when you hit that ball, he was on the go compared to the right fielder that allowed the guy getting that ball.
Yeah, it was Springer. It was
a center fielder.
Was Springer.
Yeah.
It was. I that's why it was literally. I'm not making up in real time. I'm like. You could see that on the broadcast. Like, oh, well, he's jogging to, and then oh look, they go to Odor and he's running. I'm like, okay. Oh, what are you doing? Oh,
well, all right.
Fuck it. I mean, I might have went through a range of emotions in that split second. What 4 seconds of time? I went through all right, cool,
right.
And that's Odor at this point. Like, I mean, you're gonna be super frustrated, but then he'll do some random shit. Where
that's because we talk about why is this guy still here?
Exactly.
And he does stuff like this.
Yeah, it's just. It's unreal how he shows up in these big ways, in big plays, whether it's home runs or it's things like that. But another way that I thought he might show up in, and you saw him out there, was the benches clearing scuffle that kind of happened after Brian Baker looked into the Jays dugout saying, "Keep talking. I see you talking," all this shit. Baker, obviously, he's a former Blue Jay, and I guess there's some bitterness there, whether they kind of gave up on him type of thing, like we talked about with the Russell Wilson thing. Did the Seahawks give up on Russell Wilson? Well, the Blue Jays gave up on Brian Baker. Brian Baker comes in, he's throwing 100 mile an hour. He's kind of find himself a niche role in this bullpen, and he's doing good.
This stuff like that, when I see shit like that, okay.
Have a little thicker skin.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
okay. I can get you if you're going to, I don't know, say they're chirping too. Say they did it. And maybe Baker's responding and he chirps back. I can understand, something escalating almost. What? How are you coming out of the dugout looking like he just said, screw your mom. Right. I hope she never sees you again. You said, the worst things that you could ever say to Guerrero when literally all looked like it was like this.
Yeah.
So you can't take a hand motion?
Yeah,
and
that's
then
all it was.
And
they were barking in the dugout. You hear it all the time. Teams do it all the time.
Even if you don't know what they're saying, you can hear the chirping.
Exactly. But one time the pitcher looks back in and chirps at him.
I don't mind if things escalate just by testosterone gets going. But I'm like, when you look at him in that thing, it looks like Mateo. First of all, Mateo holding him back by himself.
Hilarious.
That could do it all.
That was hilarious.
He's holding him back by himself. Teoscar Hernandez is so bothered by Brian Baker that he has to come out of his jersey to try to get to him. Oh, but when Odor comes stepping in there, I don't know what he said in Spanish, or they just he punches people. I'm going to stop, because then as soon as that thing, it was they didn't come anywhere near the Orioles after that.
Yeah, but for Mateo
just
to
ridiculous.
Hold back Guerrero and Hernandez, it was all for show. Neither one of those guys were going to do anything.
I just don't understand looking so angry at a hand gesture.
It was absolutely stupid. So you had the Odor slide, you had the benches clearing brawl, then you had Rutschman at the plate of the slide at home, which was overturned for quote unquote blocking the plate, which
he was safe anyway.
He was safe anyway, but I don't know how that rule is actually written, because as he's standing there waiting for the ball to come in, he is absolutely blocking the plate. But the last 3 seconds or so before Adley hits, comes in and slides in the dirt, he does move his body out of the way of the plate and receives the ball and then kind of comes in. So at that point, I don't know where the rule is written where you got to be out of the way of you have to have a clear line of path for the runner. Like, how soon does that clear path have to be there? You know what I mean?
Well, that's like,
it was kind of a.
What I don't get what the rule is, like,
it's just not clear.
Maybe it's more opinion than how I'm reading the rule. Like, okay, you don't want it's for safety because those catchers,
exactly
what happened to Posey, but runners can come in there and get hurt too. But if, like you just said right there, in a situation where, like, I might have been blocking the plate, but by the time a guy got there, I wasn't blocking the plate anymore. Like, nobody got hurt. Like, there was no collision really even. So how do you call it? I mean, it worked in our favor because that was what I was worried about.
Yeah.
Because I don't really know how challenges work, but, like, sometimes still. But like, when they announced that Baltimore was challenging, they go, the Orioles are challenging the call in the field, citing the rule. I was so worried about that rule, like, being kept up, like him being ruled out because they challenged the rule, not the safe thing.
Right.
I didn't know if they would have called him safe, but luckily, like, they did go by the rule. But like I understand to a point the rule. I never really liked it. Like the collisions at second.
Yeah.
I think you can come up with rules to negate those huge fucking, like, battering ram hits,
right,
and not have this rule that completely can lose you a game.
Agreed.
Like you said, like in this instance, I was even worried too. Like, granted, the ball wasn't there yet, but he came from that fair territory, and that was the problem with we had the issue with Chirinos in that one game where he came from the foul territory.
Yep.
But at some point, like, if there's no real, like, collision, I don't see how that rule. It's an ugly rule.
It's not written clear enough.
It's more gray area stuff that baseball just seems to love to have.
Exactly. So it was just a crazy game. There was so much to it. Then you have Felix Bautista end up coming in and getting this six out save. 35 minutes between when he started in the 8th and when he started in the 9th, because obviously the Orioles had a big inning there, and there was got bases loaded, some walks coming in. It took a while to get through that inning. Plus the benches clearing brawl and all of that stuff happened. So it was a pretty entertaining game. I'm sad to hear that they're losing 4-1 right now, but hopefully that'll turn around quickly. I know Cedric Mullins hit a milestone you brought up, man. Yeah, man.
So he had a steal, I think it was last night, that put him at back-to-back 30 steals for the first time, for the Orioles for the first time since Brian Robert did so in 08 and 09.
Right.
Just goes to show, like, maybe that home run was a little bit of an anomaly, but that speed and everything he brings to that part of his game, that ain't a fluke. Like, he's still doing it. I think him and Mateo are fighting for that. It might even be tied.
Yeah, they're real close.
Lead in steals. I know steals aren't as high as they used to be back in the day. Like, 40 steals might be, when might give you that category than as opposed to like 10 years ago. But it's still an aspect to the game that, like, they've implemented in general, not just them too, like their total is so high, but they're not afraid to send guys and try to take steals.
Well, we'll see what happens, man. Even if the Orioles don't end up winning tonight and they go back to 4.5 games behind, it's not do or die. Listen, there's 25 games still left in the year. They got 6 more games against the Jays after this, so they've still got opportunity to capitalize. You would have liked to have seen them at the worst split this series, at the best win the series, obviously. So hopefully tonight they can still save it and split the series.
Yeah,
so
it's
we'll
that
see.
situations too. Later, you got Nationals next week. You got Detroit, soon. Like, teams that you need to be, like, go and beat.
You have to win them.
You know what I mean? But like I said, like, it's just. That's why it's hard for me. Maybe it's a homerism. Maybe it is what it is. But, like, that's why I find it so hard to be so upset. It's like I told you, like, they won 6 series in a row and, like, they gained no ground, it felt like. So it's like it's kind of hard to nitpick too much. But, hey, there's still plenty of season left.
So the one thing I did want to talk about with tonight's game that I thought was kind of interesting, especially after, like, what I said earlier, it seemed like Hyder kind of went into playoff must-win situation mode last night, right? So he understood the importance of the game and having to win the game, right? Well, you've got one more in tonight that you can, again, split the series if you win tonight. So you know how important that is. Well, he makes a decision to bring up and activate Tyler Wells and have him start tonight. I know it's kind of, they're going to probably use him. I don't know what he's done so far in the game. I don't know what the stats look like, but I assume they were probably going to use him. They were going to use him in kind of the opener role. But I get wanting Tyler Wells to come back, and I want him to come back. I just don't know if this was the right game for that. You got Dean Kramer, who was scheduled to start tonight, Kramer went 7 innings, only gave up 2 the last time against Toronto. He's 3-1 with a 2.37 ERA in his last 6 starts across an average of 6.1 innings per pitch or innings pitched per start. So he's done really, really well, especially as of late in a game where you're in a must-win situation, or not must-win, but a really want-to-win situation.
Splitting
right?
a series, at least you go back to where you were before the series.
Yeah, is it the right call for Tyler Wells?
Keep it. It was real confusing, so I decided to look up the stats. So he went 2 innings, however it looked. Anybody could chime in, but he went 2 innings, gave up a run. They pulled him, brought in Kramer. He's gone 4 so far and counting. He gave up 2 runs, so maybe there's an unearned run in there. But like, we were talking about it, and on Twitter you can see it, and we've talked about it, like where all right, if Tyler Wells can get back healthy. There's the bullpen arm. It limits the innings. That was the whole worry anyway before the injury. It was like he was doing so good. So I'm not trying to jump on him his result for the night because he had been doing so good before the injury. And maybe he can get back to that. But it was like you were going to limit the innings anyway. Why would you bring him out of the pen?
Right.
Kramer's doing so good. Like you're tweaking too much.
Right.
Like maybe it would have been a situation where I mean, maybe it would have made a difference, but maybe Kramer goes 5 innings and he's looked iffy. He's the one that gave up the 4 runs. He's looked iffy, but he's had some good moments, and he's got to be in a low pitch count where you're like, look, let's get you out now and put in Wells. Like, I don't understand. It was real confusing. Like, I don't know if this guarantees, like, you, in your mind, like, anytime Wells is going to come in, he's guaranteed 2 innings. And that was in your head. Well, look, we can manage that right away. He does the 2 innings right away. Now we manage it as opposed to.
And now you have more time.
Kramer goes 8. His last start, he was into the 7th or 8th inning.
Right.
Now it's a 3-1 game. Obviously, you're not going to go to Wells at that point. Probably you're going to go with Cionel Perez and those guys, and probably not Bautista because of after last night. But it was a real
to me, it was just kind of a head scratcher, especially again after the decision that he made last night. And Kramer, how well he's pitched. I don't know.
Mess with it.
It is what it is. He only gave up 1 run. He pitched 2 innings, which is kind of what I expected out of him. He would kind of do that opener role or whatever. But I thought it was kind of interesting. They do end up sending Spencer Watkins down to AAA, who was
struggling.
0-3 with a 5.94 ERA in his last 3 starts. So he had definitely been struggling. But a guy that surprised for a good portion of the year, pitched well enough that he stayed up here for a while. But my question becomes, when this team starts to get closer and closer to the playoffs, and the playoffs become more and more an actual reality. We're getting almost to that point right now. You got Grayson waiting in the wings right now. I ended up going up to Aberdeen and watching his first rehab start up there in Aberdeen. He looked good. And what was kind of surprising was he was working on everything. I would say the majority of his pitches were actually his off-speed pitches. He hit 97, 98
I feel like
threw.
that's what he was doing like before the injury.
I was just surprised that was his
approach. That happened a lot. Like it was like my debut's right around the corner. I'm kind of working on things like don't worry about his stats necessarily. And then the injury happened. So I feel like that's kind of what they were doing before the injury. Yeah.
Yeah. And he looked good. Again, like I said, he was still touching 96, 97 mile an hour consistently. I think he hit 98 once or twice in the game. So I like what I saw out of Grayson. He ended up making another start in Bowie, I think yesterday or the day before. Looked good there as well.
It was yesterday,
so he's going to make, I think, one more start in Bowie this Sunday. So when is the right time for Grayson to come up? Does he come up as a starter? And if he does come up as a starter, who are you sending down or who are you taking out of the rotation?
Yeah, I don't really have an answer. Because like I just said, like what happened with Wells, I would never predicted Wells would be the opener for Kramer. So I don't know if that's what they're going to do. I mean, to me, he should be in rotation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not knowing not even making a prediction, what I think should happen. I think he should be in the rotation because before the injury, it looked like he was about to debut. That debut was he was literally about
Elias
to happen.
Basically said that.
He said it. So he's a starter, and he's a starter, and it's September. You're not going to be having 100 innings. You're not going to be coming close to touching 100 innings. At least with Wells, you're saying, all right, he's been built up, and he's been putting all his pitches and innings in as it is. limiting him was already the game anyway. Now with Grayson, all bets are off. I mean, like you got a few weeks left of the season to like make your final push. It doesn't hurt he should be starting pitcher in my mind. Who goes down? I don't know how they tweak that, because I mean, like I said, unless somebody else really falls off like Watkins did, like Voth had a little bit of a rough start, but Voth overall had been pretty damn good too.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with this whole Lyles thing. They make it sound like it's just flu-like type stuff, but it's not the flu. So
yeah, I don't
hopefully
know if it's COVID
that's
related or
not
anything.
some
Who knows?
Random, IL stint, hopefully, and
right.
hopefully he can make a scheduled start at some point, because he doesn't blow you away, but he does. He is really key for this team. So what they do, I don't know. I can't predict it.
Do you see him on this roster?
He should be, because it doesn't hurt.
Right.
He should be.
Okay.
If not, what do you really hold like if, and that's what these rehab stints are for.
Right.
To see if this injury is completely fine. And by all accounts, these first two actions, one was a start, one whatever it was. His action, there was no like, okay, he got pulled early because something looked right. No, he hit the limit. So if there's nothing that looks like for injuries, I'm like, it's the same as working. What's he going to keep doing in Norfolk that he can't do here?
So that's my point. I don't think they put him through this rehab assignment if
nothing.
The plan wasn't to have him
would've just
pitch
shut him
this
down.
year. Right.
Because Elias did say that when the injury happened. It was like, look, we want him back by September. We're not going to rush it. But if he's ready, he's back. There's no injury worry. It always was like Elias was pretty much saying, like, he's going to the main roster.
I just wonder if they're going to use him, and I made this comparison a few weeks ago, too, if they're going to use him in that kind of, like, David Price role when he came up with the Rays, when they were in the playoff push, where he kind of came out of the pen, right? We all knew what kind of talent he was. Mm-hmm. He was a #1 draft pick. It's a mirror image of what's going on right now. I wonder if they would use him out of the pen, or if they're going to actually use him as a starter, because he hasn't gone very much. He hasn't gone very long right now. I think they're limiting him to like 30 or 40 pitches right now per outing. So that 30 to 40 pitches is basically like a middle reliever, kind of what you expect out of him, a little middle relief pitcher. So I wonder if they're going to keep him in that role temporarily for this year, just to have that like emergency arm available, that good arm, and that can go 2 or 3 innings if you need him, type of thing out of the pen. I mean, obviously that's kind of what they're doing with DL Hall too right now. DL Hall has some things he needs to work on as far as his command goes and all that, and he needs to be in the bullpen right now. He doesn't need to be starting. But Grayson's never had that issue with command, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think he gives them a shot in the arm going into the playoffs, whether he's in the rotation or whether he's in the bullpen. Either way, he only makes this organization and makes this team better, at least in my opinion. So. Anything that you wanted to point out with, I know you had mentioned to me.
Suck.
Yeah.
I won't go into that because when I put that, it was like 5 days ago, and I don't know how the records changed, but it was like, I think after the doubleheader, it was like 8 straight, like day game. I mean, it's classified as day game, like losses. My point is, like, I know hopefully, like, down the stretch, it'll be that mix of day games and night games, but like, I just hope that, like, is that like that's what's going to be the doom and gloom for them? Like You can't win a day games. Every Sunday just about is going to be a day game.
22 and 27 during the day games once you started calculating this, and they're 49 and 35 in night games. I mean, that's a pretty telling stat. I never thought that there was such a discrepancy between the one or the other, but that's pretty interesting.
And it comes to like. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, so I'll just make it short. Like, it comes to that, like, sometimes with the way fans call it the punt lineup, like, sometimes maybe that's had that factor. Like, at some point, maybe you need to be like, look, I get, like, resting this guy or the other. I know how you manage Adley's at-bats and time. Like, that's what that DH spot's for. But at some point, it's like, all right, stop tinkering with the lineup. Like if this is whatever your lineup is going to be, like this is what's going to be, 90% of the games the way, because the punt lineup type situation, which happens to be on day games, like that's not going to cut it, and you'll be on the outside looking in.
No rules, no boundaries, 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2 2-minute warning.
I always
All right,
forget when
fellas.
I'm hosting. I'll do it over there, but when I'm hosting, I'm always like trying to think out the question ahead of time with my answer.
It's time for the 2-minute warning. James, you're going to read the
All
questions
right.
for us this week,
Yep.
and Drew, you're going to kick it off.
All right. Last week, with the CFB playoff committee voted unanimously.
Unanimously?
Thank you. To expand the playoff to 12 teams, which I like. Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Good thing for me. I like it too. I always thought it would be 8, so maybe 12 seems a little bit high to me, but I always thought that, like, okay, I like the playoff system. I like the thoughts of it, but 4 always felt like you're going to have some kind of complaints. When you move it up to 8 or 12, you can't sit there and go, "Oh, well, man, we need 24." Like, this isn't going to become something like a March Madness. Like, there's only so much you can go. I thought 8. I like 12. I'm fine with either 8 or 12. I just want an expansion.
Tournaments are always good in any sport. I mean, it's great in the
More
March
TV
Madness. It's great in the World Series. Everything that draws fans is always tournament based. And I know the Final Four does well with the college football the way it's laid out right now, but expanding it to 12, I think is good financially for the league, and from an entertainment value, I think it's a big win. And I think this gets it right. Who wouldn't want to see Alabama play a couple times in the playoffs?
All right. Named dark horse school to make the college football playoff this season. Last year was Michigan and Cincinnati.
I am going to go out of the box. Florida. Their quarterback looks pretty interesting. He's pretty athletic. It's the SEC team. I really have nothing to bring back to. I think it'd be cool to have something like they used to kind of be a powerhouse. I'm no fan at all. Like, so it's not like some kind of like riding the fandom. I just think it'd be cool to like come out of nowhere. They've been kind of dormant and then to be a shock.
Yeah, this was tough. Because it's all in like, what do you consider an actual dark horse? I mean, if you're just looking at like the top 6 to 8 teams or whatever, yeah, you could pick one of those guys anytime to make it. I'm gonna stay in the same conference as Cincinnati, but I'm gonna go Houston. I think Houston, they were a very good team last year, and they're returning a lot of their starters from this past season. They didn't really lose a whole lot. I think they win that conference, and I think they sneak their way in. Another dark horse, Arkansas. Be on the lookout for Arkansas as well.
Penn State.
Penn State.
No, but Brian would probably say the Terps.
Of course he would. He put money on it. All right, man. Well, we appreciate you guys all tuning in. As always, sorry for the delay in the show. It was the holiday. We had all kinds of things going on, but we appreciate all those that tuned in for the live show on Wednesday. Thanks again to Matt Talley for stopping by and hanging out. And it was fun to talk Ravens, fun to talk Jets, fun to talk Joe Flacco, and just overall talk to Matt. He's a good guy. If you haven't already, I don't know what you're doing. Make sure you're subscribed to us on all of our social media platforms. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all of the goodies. If you want to follow us as individuals, you can follow Drew at Drew27N. You can follow me at FredBLBS. You can follow James at JamesBond2032. And of course, you can follow Scott. Oh, there's that thing again.
This is why I don't touch buttons.
Yeah, you can follow Scott at ScottBLBS2. We'll be back next Tuesday night. I'm not sure if I'll be here or not, but the guys will be here for sure. I will be on my way to Charlotte this weekend. I know I'm coming back Sunday, but Monday is always going to be hell with work. So we'll see how things shake out. Hopefully I'll be here Tuesday. If not, the guys will hold it down for sure. We'll see you guys next Tuesday, one way or the other. See you guys.
See ya.
time for the after party.
It's last call for alcohol.
That was a good show, man. That was a lot of fun.
Holographic can.
Yeah, your see-through can Land Shark. It's the new can. If you haven't gotten it yet, all the kiddies are picking them up. They're
all the cool cats got it.
all the cool cats got it. Yeah, I'm excited, man. This is where things get ramped up, man. The NFL season get ready to kick off tomorrow. I keep forgetting it's Wednesday. So tomorrow. Thursday night football, first game of the year, like we talked about with the Bills and the Rams. I think it's going to be the most entertaining game of the week. These are two teams that are locked and loaded and should be in the thick of things come playoff time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
should be a fun
in
game.
the Pick'em League, I'm pretty sure that I gave that one a 1 because I'm like, I don't fucking.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was going to say that earlier, actually. My confidence points on that.
As it is, you're getting a 1. It might have made it a little bit more extra points, but I know initially it was 1. Yeah.
Speaking of the Pick'em League, if you haven't signed up yet and you're still listening to the show, make sure you follow the link in the description below to our Pick'em League. It's ran through ESPN, I believe. It's free to join, free to sign up. Again, you're going to be basically competing against, I think it's 40 to 50 of us in there, but the main thing is you're competing for bragging rights and a Birdland BS prize package. So if you haven't signed up for it yet, please make sure you do. I don't really have a whole lot this week, man. What do you got, James?
I just don't like how, I don't know if you guys saw, like, the reporter getting in, Chip Kelly after the press conference or starting the press conference. Did you hear about that?
I heard about it, but I didn't see it.
So apparently, Chip Kelly said he's going to start the press conference. I think, let's say 12 o'clock.
The guy was late.
No, it was a girl. She was late, but it was actually like 11:57. But apparently he started early, whatever. So he's like, and they said like he was just joking or whatever. But I really don't care. But I thought it was funny. But he goes, hey, I just want to let you know, you show up late, just to let you know it's $10. We put it towards the end, and we have a party at my house, so all the people that come in late, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, if you will win more games, maybe I'll be on time.
I did an appearance. Yeah,
that's great.
And they're giving up like she had to apologize. It was good that she apologized about it because no one knows who you are. You're behind the scene. When the coach makes a press conference, he's doing it out of his time and all that. I'm like,
you're getting paid millions upon millions that you left Notre Dame in the lurch to go
earn
hilarious. More millions
I
and
wouldn't apologize
millions.
for nobody, dude. But
I would have done exactly what she did. Good for her.
Dude, like maybe if you win the game, I would be on time.
What happened to his southern drawl that he all of a sudden had from his? Remember his introductory press conference?
Terrible. Terrible. And then he did that stupid recruit video with the one guy who's now committed to like Alabama.
He's dancing.
That recruit didn't even fucking come here. He's now committed to Alabama. It's fucking hilarious.
He's a joke. He'll. I give it 2 years.
He is an ass clown.
I give it 2 years.
But I loved it. She was like.
What is your take on the 12 football team format for the playoffs? Do you like it?
I think it's great because I think over the last couple of years, there's always been the same, like 2 teams always in it.
Yeah.
Or 3 teams always in it. Oh, but not to get off topic, but I know you had to like the Ohio game this week.
The Ohio State game?
With every celebrity, pro athlete was there. Like, I guess don't worry about practice this week. We have everybody at the Buckeye Stadium.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is LeBron James draw because LeBron James obviously
they had, I don't know if you saw the list. They had everybody in there, dude.
Yeah. It was pretty epic. I mean, that was probably the game of the week, the marquee matchup of the week. You got 2 top 5 teams going at each other. And it was a pretty good game, but the week 1 in college football, just like I said, I think week 1 in the NFL is going to be the same way, specifically for the Ravens. It's a little lackluster because you got teams that didn't play in the preseason, or you got for college football, this is essentially their preseason because they don't have preseason games, right? So the first week or 2 is just kind of sorting through shit, and teams just don't look great.
But
the
did
first
you see
week.
how good that money is? Did you see?
Yeah, no doubt.
No, did you see what the Ohio State quarterback gave out?
Oh yeah, $500 gift cards to everybody on the team who got to get a suit. Which was like the equivalent of like $60,000 when you start factoring in all the players.
Apparently, he drives a G-Wagon on campus.
That dude is not hurting for money before he ever plays it down in the NFL.
Glorious NIL.
Yeah. Well. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to cut it short. I'm tired. I'm ready to go. So we will see you guys next week, next Tuesday night. Hopefully, I'll be there. We'll see you guys.
See you.
Oh, man.
I didn't like him.